That was a lot of information. But reports are the extra secret sauce that will help your clients understand their finances and make decisions. For example, if a company wanted to see what their best selling products are, you could run some sales reports, specifically a sale by product summary report. This report displays all products sold over a selected period of time. It also lists the total monetary amount sold, the total percent of sales that the product represents, the average price it sold for, and the cost of goods sold, gross margin, and gross margin percent. All that from one report. If the same company wanted to know their inventory status, you could run an inventory report. And to be precise, an inventory valuation detail report, which shows you the transaction for each inventory item and how they affect quantity on hand, value, and cost. Pretty nifty, huh? Let's hear more about reports from one of my favorite bookkeeping camp graduates.
Reporting, reporting, reporting. This is one of those areas that we absolutely love and customize per client. Not necessarily that we customize the reports, although that's often helpful, but it's also customizing the types of reports we send to our clients. Keep in mind that clients do need to know about financial information, but a lot of time we want to be able to provide operational reporting. If your client is using jobs, they need to know profit by job. Which job is most profitable? Which one is not? Where are we at in the process? Have we met the margin of profitability for that particular job that we were looking for versus some other type of job? Or as a whole, what is our profit margin and what percentage are we at? Sometimes clients will take a job that's less profitable because it's going to lead to more work. And so therefore they know those changes are going to happen in their overall profitability, but yet we'll do that. So having that understanding and working with the client on that is really helpful. Payroll, of course, is one of the biggest expenses for most small businesses. A lot of reporting related to payroll, and not the gory details that you and I might like, which is payroll taxes and all of that, but just general overall information, and potentially even looking at payroll by department or by types of employees, different ways to look at that information rather than here's your payroll report. That's just, the net payment to employees and whatnot. So there's a lot of different ways to run it. We also may need to be looking at sales information, depending on the type of business they are in. There could be categories of sales or customers, categories of customers that we need to look at for sales, or wholesale versus retail customers, things like that. Profitability by product line also can be really helpful. If the client's carrying inventory, there is a ton of reporting related to inventory. How fast is it turning over? What is our margin on that inventory? How much do we have in inventory? How fast are we turning it? We've worked with one client, when we ran the inventory report, it didn't seem unreasonable that they had $200,000 in inventory until we realized that that was all the inventory they needed for the next 3 to 4 years. And so they had a lot of cash tied up in their inventory because they had laid out $200,000 in expenses for what they would need for the next several years. So it wasn't a surprise that they had cash flow issues because it was sitting literally in their inventory in the warehouse. So understanding that and helping them realize what's going on in their business is extremely important. Finding out that they could have a sale on that inventory and generate some cash, even though it's not as much as they want, it allowed them to convert that asset into something that they really could use. So running those reports, understanding payables and understanding that they need to have cash in the bank to pay those bills is important. So helping them understand that and running reports related to that. Understanding accounts receivable reports and running those so that they can see we have really old receivables. If we're not careful, it's possible those over 90-day receivables, depending on the client and the business that they are in, could become uncollectible. And then that's a problem. So really getting into those reports and finding out what reports make the most sense for the business that allows them to make business decisions is just critical for the role that we play. And again, remembering that a lot of our clients are very overwhelmed and not understanding the financials, getting into that operational reporting will help them gain confidence in the information you're providing them, help them clean up things that perhaps they haven't seen before. And then as you relate that to what they're seeing on the profit and loss statements or their balance sheet, also helps them kind of pull it together. When they see a big number on their profit and loss statement and they don't understand the details behind it, and then you can show them those details on a sales report, man, that is just that golden moment when the client is like, aha, I get it. And that is really a lot of fun. So run those reports, help the client understand what it's about, show them where that is on the financials and help them relate it to that. Also keep in mind, depending on the system that they're in, I mentioned customizing the reports. Again, a custom list of reports to give the client, but then the reports themselves might need to be modified to really provide the information the client needs. Some reports, depending on the accounting system you use, will have more information than the client needs, and it just gets overwhelming. And sometimes it's missing a key piece of information. So really understanding what they do. I had a client one time where I handed them a profit and loss statement, and I could see them just rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, gracious, what am I going to look at here? And I would ask them, I said, do you see this every month? Yes, I see it every month. What is the number that you look at? And I literally gave them a pen and said, circle it. And they showed me 2 or 3 numbers, and I was like, awesome. Then taking that information, going back and running the details so they could see what that was, really opened their eyes. And then we went through and started talking about making that profit and loss statement more meaningful to them. That was an incredible moment for them, where they really started understanding what they were looking at. And so you'll get to that point with your clients as they gain confidence in what you're doing and as you understand their business better. Just making sure that you're pulling reports and giving them reports that make sense to them and that you can help them understand is really what you want to be doing for your clients.